All right, all you devils out there, happy Friday. Oh, here we are. It's the 9th. It's just about 12:30 for me here. This is going to be a relatively brief update on Bitcoin. It hasn't moved more than about $10 since last Friday. So we sit right with just in this consolidation zone here, just hovering around the median line. So I suppose rather than go into a lot of detail, I think last week, if you haven't seen that, members, I would imagine you have. But if you're on YouTube and you're just kind of catching up here with at least our analysis here of where we are with Bitcoin, last week's will give you plenty of detail. I suppose, let's see if if I come over here and zoom in on this a little bit, we'd probably go down to the 4-hour here. It's just a big question mark at this point. See if let me pull this off here, and we look at this now. There's a case to be made that the 5 is in here. That we've gone 1, 2. Oh shit! Let me get rid of that. I know that's annoying. So let me get this. So that we've gone 1, 2, 3, 4, and the 5 is in here. All right. So the assumption would be that would be the A wave, and we're now starting into the B here before coming down for the C. That would be kind of putting all the pieces together. The assumption is now, because we have a 5, we'd be looking for a 3 into a B wave here, and then one more push down to complete the C. Well, the more bearish alternative, of course, and again, I'm kind of reviewing what we talked about last week, is that rather than completing the A wave here, we've just got to start on the 1 wave of the 5th of the A. So underway here, this would be 1, 2. Now, this is not much of a start into an impulse. If the thinking were it's 1 A, B, C into a 2, well, 1, 2, all right, it's not an impulse, right? So the only way that could play is, okay, we could have 1, 2, and since we've already had an overlap here, perhaps this is a diag into the 1 wave of the 3rd wave, right? So we'd be in a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to come down here and complete that. I suppose the alternative here would be that this is, the 2 might come up a higher here. Perhaps we've got an A, B, C into a W, X, and going into a Y. We know where the resistance is clearly here with this golden zone. So it's kind of a hurry up and wait. So not much to add here other than we kind of sit waiting for resolution. So what I thought I'd do today, just to kind of mix it up, and since there's not a lot to add from the analysis we did last week, I thought I'd just go over a couple of just some one kind of a shorter term technical approach to day trading or swing trading. It's actually one of the very first things that was ever taught to me when I started my career as a trader. And we'd focus on that, and then if I have a little time, perhaps a few other tools, and then something I've actually never done here before. That's recommend a product that might be of assistance to some of you guys looking for trade ideas. All right, so with that, let me pause here, and we'll take a look at a couple things. Okay, back in a second. Okay, so I thought I would just do a little, again, something different here today. So now, you guys have heard me describe the market as just a never-ending series of internal and external retracements, right? So we swing, we either, if we hold, it's internal, we go external if we retrace, right? So that would be a nice little trending movement here. We've got higher highs, higher lows. If we retrace here, we break this low, but if we do this, then we would essentially be looking at a larger internal retracement, right? So it's just a constant series of internal, external retracements. Well, the way that was first described to me was not in that language. It was described to me as a rotation. So the market would swing and rotate, and if we're pushing higher, you'd get another swing and another rotation. And when the market was trending, each one of these rotations would give you the opportunity to participate in a trend. So it's just different language, but I thought it would stay consistent with the way it was taught to me. And this is certainly nothing revolutionary, as most of you will be familiar with this, but what I wonder is if any of you are trading this, because it's deceptively simple, but can be highly effective. Now, I've modernized it a little bit with some of the indicators that I'm going to show you here, but all of this freely available on TradingView. So with that concept of swing retrace or swing in rotation and rotation. Let's just bring the oh, here I've got this is the Bitcoin perpetual contract. Here's 1 hour on Bybit. Nice exchange. A lot of my guys are trading over there. So if you're, and many of you may be trading there as well. It's very fast, very solid platform here to trade on here. So let's just review here. Now I'm going to give you all of these indicators here. So let's just go over them each one at a time. So first off, I have this the CEMA, which is how you would find it on TradingView, and that stands for the colored EMAs. So you just search CEMA and you'll find it. Now I'm not using the defaults. I've just tweaked it just a bit. Oh shit, come back here. All right, just a bit. Here's the way I set it for my defaults. So I want all 4 of these. You don't have to use all 4, but I choose to. In fact, and then I add a 5th. So all fib numbers, of course. So I'm running a 21, 34, 55, and an 89. Now, since I can only get 4 in this, I am then in turn going to just a straight EMA and just using a 233. And I put it in white because that's what we're using for trend direction. So I can't miss that. So in it, those would be everything you'd have up on top. Now below, if oh shit, I guess I gotta keep that on. Now below, I'm gonna give you 2 down here. One, and you've seen this before, members. I think some of you guys have been playing with this or working with this. This is the RSI Histo Alert strategy. I'm not using it as part of a strategy, but that's how you're gonna find it. So it's just an RSI, but it has this nice little feature here where we get into trend mode or chop zone. For those of you familiar with our ninja tools, it's not unlike the Wicked Wave, where we can see the market trending here when we get past the chop threshold here, and then as we retrace, then right we go below, stay. All right, so these are important levels here. Let me put that in context of how we trade it. Oh, and pardon me. And then the last thing I'll show you here is, and this is the cumulative delta, and this is kind of an interesting way that it's presented here. So you're getting this twofold. You're getting the histogram, but then you're also getting the lines to show you the difference. So just a nice visual way to see who's more aggressive, right? So I'm assuming most of you understand what cumulative volume delta is. These are the market orders coming into the market. Who's more aggressive? So we can track that via the cumulative volume delta. So we get a running total here of who's the aggressor in the market, right? So it's not a guarantee that if you're seeing sellers being more aggressive that the market's going to collapse, but it can be effective in terms of timing some of the little swing entries here that we're going to talk about. So it's just here where we're just working off of momentum. Here we're getting some volume included, and you could add a volume indicator to it as well, or just straight volume. But I thought I would just try and keep this relatively simple because, as is often the case, you start to complicate something. When it was taught to me, it was done like this, right? Now I'm just adding these in to give you extra little filter and criteria. But you don't want to overcomplicate. You want to just keep it relatively simple. And this is as simple as it gets, right? And most of you may very well have seen something like this or traded something like this, maybe just not in the language of rotation. So let me put these back here in their place, and whoa, here we'll just. I mean, there's no need to cherry pick anything. We can just use the most recent data here. So this, let's just look here. So this is, you can trade this on any time frame. It tends to lend itself well to shorter term swing trading. Or even day trading. So you could go down to the, excuse me, you could go down to the 5 minute on this. I tend to start on the hourly and see how it's performing on the hourly and see if there's good movement here. Of course, you'll get better, the return will be better. You'll have fewer trades, but you won't get chopped up as much as you will as you start to go under an hour. So I would encourage you to consider, maybe do some testing, use the paper trading to test it out and see if you like it. Oh, here, let's just use a couple of examples. Well, shit, looks like we can just use the last little swing here. So I think looking at this looks pretty good here. It looks like what they did here is they didn't use this wick, because here we're right to the golden zone, and then but we get first target down here. So what I'm trying to show you here is how to combine things that we know. We don't want to abandon what we know is the dominant algorithm in the market, but we just want to try and incorporate it. So as you're looking here, the idea. Oh, that's probably not a great example here. Let me here. This would probably be a better example here of how this is ideally situated here. So the market has moved underneath the 200, right? This is a very common filter, right? So there's nothing you haven't seen. And this, probably the closest thing would be Daryl Guppy's approach, where he's got a gazillion moving averages here. This is just simplifying this a little bit. So we get a move underneath the 200, so we know the trend is down. We can look down here. We know sellers in control. We see all the momentum is down. But then we get our little rotation back up into the moving averages. Now, as long as we don't fly too far up here, and this you can use this as a reference here. Ideally, that the perfect one here, we don't go beyond 10, but you'll often see it go beyond and then rotate back down. But what you're looking for is the ideal scenarios here. We get, as you're seeing it right here, is we get right into the moving averages, and we don't threaten the 200, and then we roll over. So your entry is done a couple of different ways. So you could take the break of the smallest moving average, which is the 21. You could take that break. But what you want to see in conjunction with that is that sellers are in control, so you're getting the visual representation here of the cumulative delta. But then you're also seeing the momentum as we break from this is 10 on each side. So as we break below 10 in the RSI, we've got the makings of a decent trend here, and you see it repeats. So here would be the entry. We just kind of do it this way. And here would be the entry. Here would be the stop. Here's the pivot that we're trading from. And this is you want to 1-to-1 might be a reasonable place to take a partial. You want a minimum of where's 2-to-1 going to be right about here. So that would be ideal. You're not trying to hit a home run on each one of these, but they can run away from you. There's 3-to-1. Well, so we get another rotation. So we actually get here before we kick back. Now here's a perfect example. I'll take that off. Here's a perfect example. You see where we kick back into the moving averages here. Note the RSI does not get on the other side of the threshold. So we hold and then we drop down again. As we drop down now, so that's where. Of course, it's easy in hindsight, right? But the idea being, if you entered here on the break as we head down, so we see sellers in control via the cumulative delta. We see the RSI break. Now, you can't just sit here and say, oh, well, let's see how far that goes, because look, right, it snaps right back, as is often the case in this kind of rotation. But what'd you have here? You had 4-to-1. So if you're taking a partial at maybe 1.5, 2-to-1, looking for a 3-to-1, then you'd be trailing a stop here, or at the very least moving your stop to break even, because of course you don't know how far that's going to go. But you get some hint of it here as everything crosses back over zero. So if I look at this here, now we're crossing back zero right here. So you've given back the majority of your profit here. You would still have a small profit, but you want to be careful about that, because as we start to push the other direction, the potential is, oh, do we have a trend change? Well, some of the tools that we would use here to help us with that decision. Now this would be a question mark here. So we're just getting a couple of wicks through. Now would you sell that here? Well, maybe if the fibs were right. All right, so let's take a look here if I can get this here. Let's just do it this way. I can get a little more room to work with. Oh, looks like that's about right here. So if I pull it here, okay, so here's the last pivot before we head down. We get this swing here. Now we come up golden zone. All right, now as we come, now let's look at it from here. So as we hit golden zone and we come back under the 2, you wouldn't want to sell it until we get through all of the moving averages. Now this is a bit of a trader's choice here as to how aggressive you want to be here, because you have the clustering. The moving averages are kind of all on top of each other. Now, of course, at that moment in time, oh shit, let's see if I can do it this way here. Now here, if I just use the replay, Now, what you're leaning into here is that the trend has been down. We've retraced now to the 200, but we're sitting right at a golden zone. So you'd be checking, right? You'd check from this as well. So could it be the 50? Could be that that's what they used. That we're using the 50 here. Now, do you want to sell that? Well, everything here is saying, no, you don't want to sell that. There's no indication other than the fact that I'm at a 50 and I've come right up to the POC and I'm really coming back to all of this structure. Do I want to sell that? Well, not just yet. Let's see if I can do the replay here. So now as we get right about here, we start to look down here. We're still in the chop zone, but now as we break below the moving averages, RSI breaks out of the chop zone, and now we start to get that movement heading down. So at this point in time, if you're entering here and your stop is here, that's probably not far enough to move it just yet, but I'd be mindful of the fact that this could snap back. So I'd be looking for any signs here of a change in the complexion of the market, right? So right now sellers are in control. We can see that's increasing. We're getting pretty hot down here, and I'd be paying attention to where we are relative to the algo on the other side. So if I take this one off, now I know that I'm likely to hit some resistance here, but I've had a nice little trade here, right? So, oops, I want the short trade. So if I'm entering here, my stop is right here, and I'm right there. Well, there's 1.37 to 1. Well, maybe I take a partial there. I might just tighten the stop up a little bit, go down to the secondary pivot. If I get through that, well, then I'd be looking for something down here to challenge the pivot. Now I'm at 4 to 1. So we just push that off here in terms of our entry and just let that play a little bit. Well, now I come right to the golden zone. Now we see not out of the trend change is not there, but it's interesting that we're starting to see that little pivot. Now we're back down. We're at the golden zone. This is good to see. Sellers are firmly in control. Do we break? Do we break? Right? You see it? Right to the golden zone, and we know we know this algorithm just dominates Bitcoin. It's almost every pivot. So as we sit here seeing that reaction at this moment in time, now look here, we're not beyond the moving averages here, but you would be mindful of the fact that you've hit the algorithm here on the other side. That's got a target up here. Your entry is here. So one thought is just tighten it up to break even. So you can't get hurt and just let it run, see what happens. Maybe, look at that, right? So now you did a couple of things. You've reduced your risk, so it essentially becomes a free trade, and the market keeps heading down. Now we hit the 786, another reaction. We're going to go again. Right? That's what you're dealing with throughout the entire time. But right now, looking at this, while we do get a little divergence down here, you'll note here from here. Well, let's see if I do it this way. You note the divergence here. This is one of the things I like about this indicator. So you note here we get a low in the RSI, but here I get a price low, but I get divergence here. So I'd be looking to take some profit here because I don't have the market is implying to me that the potential is here for this to snap back, and a logical target would be either this high volume node here where there's likely to be some resistance, or back to the POC. I can't remember how far this goes. Right, as we come back here, there's your entry, right? Do you steer it, right? So there, you'd have been stopped out at break even right there. Right, so that means always the battle between two algos, right? So right here, as we've retraced that, you know that you had a breakdown here of the golden zone, so it's still advantage bears, but you don't want to overstay your welcome in these trades, particularly when you start to see some divergence. Then up here, we see buyers starting to take control of the market. They're getting a little more aggressive, so you can ride it out. Again, this becomes very much an individual choice as to whether or not you want to risk giving it back. Now here, clearly you'd been stopped out, right? So now as we break on the other side of the 200, you can kind of look at that and say, okay, well, I get what happened. Well, we came down here, all right, we hit the 786, right? So we don't have this particular algo working with us, but we have a technical pivot here. So perhaps a different algorithm, hard to know, what's causing that. But as the market keeps rallying here, now you've got change of complexion. Right, so now as the market, we flip to the other side of the 200. We see buyers are in control. The RSI has had a push, and now we're into that rotation, right, which is kind of where I started. Right, so if I bring this in here, so we as the market flips here, we get swing, rotation, right into the moving averages. Now note down here we get a pop up. Now this would be a judgment call to the individual trader. For a hard filter, you would wait until you get to the other side of the 200. Now that we get to the other side of the 200, now if it's me, I'm looking at a 60 and I'm saying, okay, well, let's see what we do here. Now I just tag the 50. Now the cumulative delta is neutral here. You can see the lines are right on top of each other. We're in the chop zone. So is there a trade there? Well, I would suggest not yet. Right, you would want to see this thing start to pop, and you'd want to start to see, okay, a little evidence here of buyers taking control. Is it enough yet? Well, so that's the last. That gets us to real time. So I think this is a valid entry to be long here because you can do this with a very nice risk reward, which is always the idea. So we long here. We're looking for a 2 to 1. It could be relatively tight with that stop, but I'd want to get 2 to 1 here if I can get that. There's 3 to 1 right there to go up and challenge that high. So with that, I'd get a 3 to 1. I mean, this is a function of your risk tolerance. I mean, you don't want to do this, right? We don't want less than a 1 to 1. So if I'm taking that trade, I want to be mindful of the risk reward scenario that I have, because if it rolls over, I get stopped out. I want to know that at least I went in looking for a minimum of 2 to 1. So the idea here is not to be swinging for the fence. You're trying to hit singles here. So into that trade long off of the change in rotation, we get as I just showed you, we've got from this swing here to this pivot, we've just tagged a 50. Now we're above the moving averages. We're above the 200. Buyers appear to be in control. We're not quite out of the chop zone here, so this might be a little bit of an early pivot here to jump in. Oh shit, I'm not going to get anything else here. So I guess if I take that off, that just puts us, puts us right back to where we were. Or maybe I did have that. Oh, yes, I did. So here we were. So here was the trade. So that ultimately got to target and beyond. I think that's where we left off. Oh, I didn't think we had any more. Okay, so you see it there. So there's the little retrace to the 50 we're just looking at that gets to target. But note when we get up here, right? So then we get the rotation. Now, so there being, you got your 3 to 1. That looks like you got your 4 to 1. You're just after those little swings here. So now what happens? Now we're underneath. Now, do I want this trade here? Well, I don't really have the right kind of setup here. I don't have the rotation. Now I can pull back on that and look and say, well, that looks like it might be a 50 or a golden zone here. So if I pull that, right? So we're right in between. We're not to the tick on the golden zone here, but I get a little push up here. Do you want that trade? Well, again, we're just beyond the 50. We're just beyond the 200. You see the moving averages start to open up, and there's a little punchy signal there. All right, you're not trying to swing for the fence here. Oh, here, this would be kind of a judgment call. We just looked at this, right? So let me go back a little bit. Here, it's simple conceptually here, but this is a pretty nice one right here. Again, just using what's right in front of us. You don't need to cherry pick. You can go back through all the data you want. Okay, so here, now note the moving averages are all clustered on top of each other. So as we break right here, as we break above the 200 and the moving averages, as they start to pop there, that's the entry. Now what's happening down here? The RSI goes beyond the threshold, so we have the potential for a trend to establish. We've got buyers in control, and what you're after is just that first target, the first algo target is never a bad spot to be working from. So if I work up there, and then I know I want to have a 3 to 1. Oh shit, I guess we got to get right here. Where's my 3 to 1? There, that's close enough. All right, so I'm right on this little pivot here as I've gone up. There's my target. I want to keep it at a 3 to 1. So I don't want to do this and say, oh, I'm going to give that to the golden zone because I'm less than a 3 to 1 here. I want to come up here. Ideally, I'd be right here. It's 2.5 to 1, but I'd come up just a hair so I can get that 3 to 1. So I'm consistent with my entries. Right, you're going to get stopped out, right? Any system like this, they're going to be false signals. They're going to be things that will stop you out, which is why it's so important that you get the money management right, so that you're getting your 2 to 1, 3 to 1. So maybe a partial at 2 to 1, and you're after the 3 to 1. But if you can bank a 2 to 1 here, put a portion of it in your pocket, even maybe take half of it off, and see if you get the extra kick to the 3 to 1. Get your target. Now, as soon as you get that, look how the market rolls over. So let's just go back a little bit further and just look at a couple other examples, and then I'll wrap up here. How am I doing? 20 minutes. Oh, I think we looked at that. So here, let's look at something we haven't looked at here. Okay, so here we get on the other side. Here's a nice example of rotation. So we swing up. Now here, you know, you're just kind of getting there. You're right at the 200. There's a little bit of a cluster. Maybe you got that, maybe not. But on the retrace, that's what sets this up so nicely. So we go here. They're right to the 50. So do you see how we've come back into the moving average? Now here's the 200. We stay above it. Now we combine with that our algo pull. Right. So as the market gets a little, I got to get over here so you can see it. Okay, so as we come up out of here, you don't get a straight launch. But if you're in that with your 3 to 1, so here we come, here it'd be right here. You're after a 3 to 1. So there's 2 to 1. I'd want to, there's 3, that's pretty close. 3 to 1, I'm trying to get 3 to that target. So you had to take a little bit of heat here, a little bit, right? It's very, very minor. Shit, I can't get that. There you go. You can see a little bit better here. So you can see we get kind of sideways here, and there's no real sense of who's in control. You can see it down here as well. But as we, again, now push and rotate, so we get a little rotation, a swing up, another rotation. That's kind of hard to see. Now, as we push here, straight up, we get to that algo target, and eventually this just shy of second target. But here's the move, and it's reflected down here. You see the RSI go with it. Here, I got to do this so you can see the cumulative delta. You see the buyers take control. Here's your target. You got your 3 to 1. If it rolls over and goes again, right? Do we have it again? So you might look down and say, well, okay, what about the next one? Okay, so here we come back down. It starts to go. Well, look down below. Right, we don't have the ingredients. We don't have the criteria there. We can do it this way. We don't. I mean, we're just beyond the threshold here, but you have no sense of really any strong control from either side. We get a little bit of a pop here. So maybe if you took that, it would be a scratch, maybe a very small loser. Now, so right back to the 200 reaction. Now we're down. Here. This is not a bad one here. So as we break, now come back to test it from below. Perfect. All right. Yeah, then these require you to manage the trades. So we've broken below the 200. The moving averages have all turned negative. Sellers are in control. RSI is pushing lower. Right. So there's your entry right there. So that one actually ends up being, you know, a gift. Right. That's the Elon FUD. You wouldn't have known, right, that was coming. So if you got this, and if you left a runner or a portion of it or 20% of it to run, you don't know. And I think that happened overnight. Depends on where you were. Oh, let me just go back further to something where it's just random and we won't know it. We won't remember. Here's a nice sequence here. This is ideally what you're looking for, a nice sequence like this where we get swing, rotation here. Look who's in control, right? Buyers clearly in control. Rotation again, we go up again. Rotation again, we go up again. Rotation. When you get in these kind of sequences, and then if we add into that, let's bring this down just a bit, the potential for these to be algo swings. Oh, let's see here. There's a golden zone going to target. We go again. Here's a 50. We could come up here. It looks like that might have broken, so you'd have to go back one here. So here's the golden zone. Note how we stay right. There's the 89 right there. Up we go, target. We actually get second target here. Now here we get, you can look at it this way, and just, again, keeping it simple. We've got a series of higher lows and higher highs, right, all the way up. Now what happens here? Lower high. We break the structure. Here's the lower low. Now, right, so would you be selling right here? Maybe. That's a judgment call. You're not below the 200 yet. You get below the 200. This looks promising. So if you took this, well, you're stopped out, right? So there's the one that will stop you out. So if you took it here and your stop was that pivot and you're looking for 3 to 1, right? Here it starts to break. Now it's not looking so good. You'd take the stop. Likely you'd have taken the stop there. All right, so you're gonna have losers, right? Obviously, right? Everything. There is no system that doesn't that doesn't give you some losers along the way. But if you focus on that 3 to 1, you'll find that the numbers will work in your advantage. Oh God. And when you get a run like this, where, so this can be run, take profit, again, take profit, again, take profit, again, take profit. These can really be lucrative moves like this if you get that kind of thing happening. Now, just to wrap it up, I suppose we can go down to the 15-minute here. And because for those of you looking for trades, there's no shortage of trades as you shorten the time frame here. So all of these little swings here are now going to be right in your face. I'm trying to go areas we haven't covered. Oh, here's another nice run when it's trending. That's going back to when we went up to our high. Here's another one coming back down here. Looks beautiful, right? Just the kind of thing. You see all the clarity here. Sellers fully in control. Here's the break. We go down. You see the momentum, but right, you wouldn't. There's another good example. All right, if we sell it here, stop at the pivot. We're after 3 to 1. We don't quite get it. You don't quite get your 3 to 1. So as it kicks all the way back, that's why you'd want to take a partial if you can get 2 to 1, right? So here's 2 to 1. You're taking a partial there. Now you're looking for the remainder to go, but as is often the case, we start to get rotation now going back the other direction. So if you took a little partial here, you're out at scratch or a small loser. So call the entire trade a scratch. Now we flip back over the 200. We get that rotation. You're looking to combine it if you can with an algo swing. All right, so pulling here to here, come back to the 50. Is it ripe? Is it ripe? Not ideal. It ultimately gets there. Here's the lowest pivot we got. Here's the target. All right, so that's probably enough on that. Very simple concept. Again, you can find all of these indicators here: cumulative volume delta, the RSI histo alert strategy, and the colored EMAs. You don't have to set these the way I have them, but that's just the way it was taught to me, and that's the way I continue to do it, always using fib numbers, and then a 233 for trend direction. Right, add that into your algo pulls, look for those entries as it breaks below and it confirms with who's in control and the momentum in the RSI, and you'll find that this can be quite profitable. All right, well, we'll wrap it there. Rather than try and get into another technical approach or a set of tools, the back of my mind, I'm saving that for next week if Bitcoin doesn't go anywhere. But I'll get there eventually on it when the market slows down as it is now in summer and everything just being kind of quiet. We'll save that for another day. So I'll leave you with that little teaser here. But again, I would encourage you to do a little testing with this. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised by what you see here. All right, guys, with that, I'll wrap it and wish you guys a good weekend. Members will be back. We're looking at alts on Monday. Okay, guys, have a good one.